Giant Squid. Architeuthis ducks inspired centuries of sailors' stories about sea monsters large enough to drag entire ships underwater, and for most of human history, nobody could prove those stories wrong. This is the giant squid, and until 2012, not a single living specimen had ever been filmed in its natural deep-sea habitat, despite being known to science since the 1800s. Everything researchers knew before that came from carcasses that washed up on beaches, squid pulled up by accident in deep-sea fishing nets, and leftover beaks found inside the stomachs of sperm whales. It can grow to around 13 meters long, including its 2 long feeding tentacles, and it has the largest eyes of any living animal, measuring up to 27 centimeters across, roughly the size of a basketball. Researchers believe those enormous eyes likely evolved to detect approaching sperm whales, one of its only real predators, from more than 100 meters away in near-total darkness. When a Japanese research team finally captured footage of a live giant squid off the Ogasawara Islands in 2012, it marked the first time in recorded history anyone had actually seen the animal behind centuries of Kraken legends alive in its own environment. Colossal Squid. Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni was first identified in 1925 from nothing more than a couple of tentacle fragments pulled out of a sperm whale's stomach, and for 100 years afterward, no one had ever seen a living one in the wild. This is the colossal squid, and unlike its more famous relative, the giant squid, it wins on raw mass rather than length, with confirmed specimens weighing close to 500 kilograms, making it the heaviest invertebrate ever recorded. Instead of the toothed suckers found on most squid, its tentacles are lined with hooks that can rotate a full 360 degrees, locking onto prey no matter which direction it tries to twist away. Then, in March of 2025, almost exactly a century after the species was first named, a research vessel finally filmed a live colossal squid in its natural habitat in the South Atlantic Ocean. The animal in that historic footage was not the terrifying adult from a century of scientific speculation. It was a nearly transparent baby, about 30 centimeters long, the first of its kind anyone had ever seen alive. Humboldt Squid. Dosidicus gigas has earned the nickname Diablo Rojo, or Red Devil, from fishermen along the coasts of Mexico and Chile, thanks to its habit of flashing bright red across its body when hunting. This is the Humboldt squid, and it hunts in coordinated groups of up to 1,200 individuals that use those color-changing flashes to communicate with each other in complete darkness hundreds of feet below the surface. Researchers studying the species discovered that Humboldt squid don't just change color, they actually glow from within to backlight their skin patterns, essentially using their own bodies the way a phone screen lights up letters. They grow astonishingly fast, going from about the size of a grain of rice to over a meter long within a single year, before dying after just 1 to 2 years of life. Cannibalism has been documented within groups, particularly when one individual is injured or hooked on a fishing line. Despite a long-running reputation for attacking divers and swimmers, most researchers now believe the vast majority of aggressive encounters happen specifically during feeding, not as unprovoked attacks on humans. Bigfin Squid. Magnapinna has been directly observed alive fewer than 24 times in the entire history of deep-sea exploration, which makes it one of the rarest confirmed sightings of any large animal on the planet. This is the Bigfin squid, nicknamed the ghost squid by researchers, and it looks almost nothing like any other cephalopod on this list. Its arms and tentacles are essentially identical in length, and each one ends in a long, thin filament that can stretch the total length of the animal out to an estimated 7 meters, even though its actual body is comparatively small. It holds its arms out at sharp angles from its body in what researchers call an elbow posture, and it has been recorded drifting through the water with those filaments trailing motionlessly behind it. In 2020, researchers studying footage from the Great Australian Bight noticed something that had only ever been seen in one other squid species before: the filaments coiling up like a spring, possibly as a way to retract them. It remains one of the least understood large animals in the ocean, identified more by a handful of blurry submersible videos than by any specimen scientists have properly examined. Vampire Squid. Vampiroteuthis infernalis translates from Latin to vampire squid from hell, a name so dramatic that a German zoologist gave it in 1903 based purely on the animal's blood-red eyes and dark webbed arms. And the name has been misleading people for over a century since. This is the vampire squid, and despite everything its name implies, it is not actually a true squid at all. It's the last surviving member of a separate ancient lineage that split off from squid and octopuses roughly 165 million years ago. It also isn't a predator in any meaningful sense, since it survives entirely on marine snow, the slow drift of dead plankton and organic debris sinking down from the surface, collected using 2 long sticky filaments rather than hunted with speed or venom. When it does feel threatened, it turns its webbed arms inside out into what scientists call a cloak, exposing spiky-looking projections to look far more dangerous than it actually is, and if that fails, it can release a glowing cloud of bioluminescent mucus that keeps glowing for several minutes while the animal drifts calmly away. Every part of the name Vampire Squid from Hell describes how the animal looks. None of it describes how the animal actually behaves. Firefly Squid. Watacenia scintillans is only about 3 inches long, but for a few weeks every spring, millions of them turn an entire bay in Japan an otherworldly shade of glowing blue. This is the firefly squid, and unlike most bioluminescent sea creatures, which rely on glowing bacteria living inside their bodies, this species generates its light entirely on its own using its own internal chemistry. Scientists have also found that firefly squid appear to have color vision, something believed to be unique among all known squid species, thanks to 3 different visual pigments and a double-layered retina that may let them tell their own bioluminescent signals apart from ordinary ambient light. Each spring between roughly March and May, millions of these squid rise from deep water to spawn in Japan's Toyama Bay, where a narrow underwater canyon pushes them toward the shore in such enormous numbers that the government has officially designated the bay a special natural monument. After they lay their eggs, the adults die within days, completing a life cycle that lasts barely a single year before their own offspring return to the same bay to do it all again. Of everything on this list, it might be the smallest and shortest lived. It's also the only one people travel across the world just to watch.